I'm Jerry Barney, the Executive Director of our task, and we just came out of a meeting in which several organizations presented their ideas about a Plan B for the planet, for Earth. And I have a question out of that I want to ask to Erik. But Erik, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. I'm Erik Assadourian. I'm a senior fellow at Worldwatch Institute and director of the Transforming Cultures Project.
Okay, here's my question.
All right, let's hear it.
When I was in college, I made a bicycle tour of Europe. And to get there, I took a small freighter across the ocean. And it was a 7-day trip. And I remember many days waking and going out on deck and thinking, my gosh, the ocean is such a big place. And I kept thinking about a title of a book called Freedom in a Rocking Boat. And thinking about, what would happen to this little freighter if everybody had freedom to do whatever they wanted to, and we destroyed the ship. That was a pretty frightening idea to me, riding on that ship. Now, when I think about where we humans are at present, it seems to me that we're in a situation somewhat akin to being on a ship in the middle of the ocean. We're on a planet that's in something vastly bigger than the ocean. And we are tearing this place apart. My question is, if you are an individual on a rocking boat and you see that your other passengers are destroying the place, do you have a right? Do you have a responsibility to engage in civil disobedience? And if you do, how might we go about that?
Do we have a right and responsibility to engage in civil disobedience? On a rocking boat. On a rocking boat, it seems like a metaphor that works, but at the same time doesn't, in the sense that on a rocking boat, we should, in theory, be able to call a bigger authority, someone beyond the executive power of the captain, to change how we're acting or to get some rescue. In our case, it's even worse. As you said, we're in a vastly bigger ocean, and there's no one here to come rescue us. There are no aliens that could send us a plan for purely clean technology. So our unruly passengers have to be organized. We have to get their agreement somehow to move to a different system. And I don't see that happening, in part because there's so many. It's not just that these passengers are unruly because they want to be, but there's actual people on the ship creating giant ads, media, all different things, encouraging them to destroy the ship as fast as possible and to get all their symbolic well-being and joy from that process. So there is a right to enact civil disobedience because there are clear efforts to accelerate the destruction of that ship. What is its role? How do we use it? We at least have to start having the conversation about how to use it. Ideally, we start thinking strategically about how to use it, not symbolically. Wendell Berry, back at a Society of Environmental Journalists conference, once said, we have to stop using symbolic civil disobedience. We have to use strategic civil disobedience. And what he meant was that we can't organize a day-long protest and then at the end of the day declare victory and go off and celebrate at the Rock and Roll Hotel, which we've done in the past in our community. Instead, we have to do a long-scale and very uncomfortable strategy that has worked in the past. The Indian independence movement has worked, the apartheid movement in South Africa has worked because of dedicated individuals who are willing to risk their lives and willing to risk their freedom in this process. I've personally mentioned to you, and I think this is probably where this question is coming from, an idea of a carbon march to DC, where we actually march as many people who would collaborate, who would get involved, not just to march on Washington, like we've done so many times effectively with civil rights or other things, but march on Washington and then symbolically shut down the city until the politicians pass real climate law.
Symbolically or actually?
Symbolically, meaning work would still be going on, but if you look at DC, it's a unique city where, one, it's the capital of the world at some level, at least the capital of the United States. It's a 500,000 or 600,000 population, but it swells every day to 2 million plus with all the federal workers and others coming into the city, lobbyists. And so there's no way that it would actually be shut down. But if civil disobedience happened where we actually started to, in a sense, blockade the major thoroughways into the city, what would that do? It would bring shame to the nation state in the other parts of the world where we couldn't sustain our own population, keep them kind of happy, and push a lot of pressure on the national government, on the Obama administration if it happened within the next few years, or further administrations, to accept that, wow, maybe we really do need to prioritize climate change regulation or legislation, and not small tweaks that is going on now, but true changes like a carbon tax that is ratcheted up rapidly and to a level that really transforms the American economy. The complete end of fossil fuel subsidies and many other big-scale changes that within a few decades get us down to a almost carbon-free society. That's the level of change that we need. When the IEA says 2/3 of fossil fuels need to stay in the ground if we're going to prevent catastrophic climate change, we need to make radical changes, and without a strong civil disobedience-driven environmental movement, I don't think that's going to happen. So yes, it is in the rights of society to act. Of course, they will be risking their own life and liberty in that process, as all civil resistors do. But there is a need to start considering what strategies we should be considering to move our civilization off the edge of the cliff.
Are you finding that there are interested young people in this area? Are you alone? Do you find other people who are thinking about this?
Well, this is a topic that I have to admit, it's something I've been kind of looking at in the abstract. I know 350 and others are really trying to find strategies on how to use their small amount of leverage as strategically as possible. I mean, the Keystone pipeline, civil disobedience is an example. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to the level that will make the changes that we need. Whether they've chosen that strategy because that's all they felt they could muster, or if that really was the most strategic in their mind, I don't know. This is not my primary, kind of study in a sense. But there are many who are studying civil disobedience much more closely. The author of this chapter, for example, Bron Taylor, has been looking at the role of civil disobedience for many years now. And I think as systems unravel more and more, this is the time where we maybe can muster people to get out of their comfort zones and start engaging in what just a few years ago wasn't even on the map.
Well, Erik, thank you, and keep us in touch with what you're doing.
Sure.
All right.